Yeah, yeah, Leif do, no two, yeah, I know, no, yo, Chase hitting the screen, drops knowledge like an oracle. Green vibe strong, spitting lines metaphorical. Telly's got the mic, questions be rhetorical. Pierce in the middle, keeping it historical. Live stream popping, views stacking high. Chase reps the plant life, Telly curious why. Pierce keep it balanced, eagle eye fly. Debate in the air, truth can't lie. Virtual stage, chase that scene. Telly lean in, screen so clean. Pierce keep it cool, conversation keen. World tuned in, this live stream supreme. Ethics on the table, plates of discussion. Chase drops facts, full course eruption. Telly stays sharp, no rush consumption. Pierce mediates, flowing in conjunction. Audience chat, blowing up with queries. Chase with the patience, zero to a series. Telly throws points, angles so mysterious. Pierce weaves threads, keeping it serious. Virtual stage, chase that scene. Telly lean in, screen so clean. Pierce keep it cool, conversation keen. World tuned in, this live stream supreme. Yeah, yeah. Pave two, no droom. Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, Chase, Telly? How you guys doing?
How's it going?
Hello. Doing so
Hey,
well.
Pierce, thanks for having me. And Telly, good to see you.
Good to see you. How goes it, everyone?
Going pretty good. Pretty good. It's a great day. So, both of you are here on my YouTube channel live in Discord. And if you want to come to Discord instead of YouTube, if you're on YouTube and you're like, I really want to be on Discord, there's a link in the description. You can find that. You can also find these two wonderful gentlemen, their social medias. You can find Telly's Instagram. You can find Chase's YouTube channel. And yeah, so if you want to join on Discord, you're more than welcome to come join on Discord. But with that being said, we got Chase here, we got Telly here, and they wanted to have a conversation about veganism. So what we're gonna do, yeah, one of you guys start speaking.
Cool,
Yeah.
can do. Thanks, Pierce. Good job. I saw Telly on your YouTube channel being interviewed, and I was like, well, he seems like a nice fella. And he said he was interested in talking to other people on his Instagram and to reach out if you wanted. So I reached out because I wanted to. And I sent him a video of a cool interview that I did with somebody else from a few years ago. And just thought we might have a one-on-one, and I was like, well, let's get Pierce in here too. He's a great facilitator of conversations. So there we are.
Right on, right
Yeah,
on.
I agree. I love talking to people about things, especially things that I'm interested in. And I love veganism as a concept. It is so cool. It goes literally against every fiber of human evolution because meat is very calorie dense. So for us to be in a world in an environment where more and more of the population can make the choice of being vegan and not have to be malnutrition because of it is so awesome. And I
Mhm.
think that would be a really good way to start the conversation. What
Yeah,
do you think?
sure. I could. Yeah, I take a daily multivitamin for sure. Just to make sure I get my
Yeah.
B12 and my vitamin
Yeah,
D and
that's so
everything.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
think
might as
veganism
well,
is so cool.
just to make sure you get all your levels up where they need to be and get them checked when you need to.
Mhm.
I do a once a year with the doctor and get my blood levels checked, and um, things are looking good on my B12 and
Mm,
all my vitamins and macronutrients are taken care of. I've been vegan now for 14 years. I stopped eating animals when I was like 26.
mm.
um, so yeah, but it is important that yeah, you can have deficiencies if you don't um make sure that you're getting enough iron, all that stuff. But um all that stuff is found in an appropriately planned plant-based diet.
I'm just taking notes so I can structure the conversation. But yeah,
Cool.
I completely agree. I think when so me in 2017, 2016, 2015 maybe. I watched like a lot of people the documentary about I think the SeaWorld thing particularly, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is disgusting, the way that we treat
Yeah.
animals." And that sparked my entry into wanting to pursue some kind of like way of limiting my exposure to meat through my diet. And I chose to be pescatarian because I was in high school and I lived in my house with my parents, and they were not gonna give me a budget for me to buy and make food myself. So I ended up making the choice of being pescatarian, and that taught me so much about my diet and what I needed to do even in high school. That was a catalyst for me even taking more of a systematic approach to handling my health. And though it's not veganism, it was definitely something that sparked my curiosity into exploring a world without meat. Because like let's be real, like killing animals for food, dude, at its essence feels kind of messed up, dude. I'll be so honest. It feels really messed up to have to do that. So I think the future and where we're heading in terms of progress of like lab grown meat and meat alternatives and vitamin supplements and even things like Ozempic, for example, are going to lead us to a world where instead of it being the narrative right now is, oh, what is a meat substitute? But I think in the future, it's going to be like, why wouldn't you choose this? Why are you even eating meat at that point? And I think the more and more we make an evolution into that world, the more and more being a vegan is going to be a prospect, and the better for everyone that is. Because if you think about it, lab-grown meat at its most efficient and most well-researched, dude, that's definitely going to be significantly cheaper than slaughtering cows. And think about the emissions and stuff. It's just going to be better for everyone. And also, it's going to taste better. Let's be honest, lab grown meat. Like, I don't know if anyone has tried an Impossible Burger. That thing, it's really good. So I'm
Yeah,
excited
and
for the
that's the
future.
cool. Yeah, and the Impossible Whopper over at Burger King is a plant-based burger, but you were talking about lab-grown cultured meat, which is actual animal flesh, but without torturing and killing an animal in the process. No animal is like raised and then slaughtered. They're just like I think there's different ways of extracting some cells from the
Mhm,
animal that's alive, or they might even after they pass, you might be able to extract like so I could imagine a situation where we're just, doing small little biopsies on animals in sanctuaries, and so it's not hurting them or anything, and we take it to a lab and then grow a bunch of steaks to feed the people that are just hooked on steaks, I'll
mhm,
probably pass on just because like I lost my appetite for
sure.
real flesh, but I'll eat a vegan steak that's pretty similar. So I don't know, it's a little but morally speaking, I wouldn't have a problem with lab grown meat, so long as an animal's not hurt.
Yeah, I agree. The further we get away from having to harm our ecosystem for anything in order to get things, I think is always the best solution. Even when it comes to our energy, that's why solar energy and wind energy is so much better. Yes, coal might be more efficient or whatever at the time, whatever we were when coal was more efficient. I don't even know if that's still true. But the further we get away from having to damage our ecosystem in order to get products out of it, the less we require our ecosystem to solve problems, the better we will be. And I think veganism is just an evolution of that for our diets.
Nice,
Um,
nice. Yeah, and I think it'll take, for big systemic changes, it can take years and decades, but I think that we can make the change. Like, it might depend on the person, but I was able to make well, I guess I wasn't really able to make the change overnight because I mean I there was a day when I stopped eating animals overnight, right? But there
mm,
was years leading up to that was, I probably only had like 3 conversations with a vegan or a vegetarian in like the decades leading up to that day. Um but then I just got pushed over the line. Have you ever seen the movie District 9
yes.
with the aliens that crash land
Yeah.
on Earth? And then the
Yeah, one of my
humans
favorite
are like
movies.
oppressing the aliens, even though the aliens are peaceful and they don't mean us any harm and they've got kids that they care about, but they look
Mhm.
different than us and they talk different than us. And so the humans, exploit them, run painful experiments on them, kill their babies and stuff like this. and put them in these ghetto camps. And it just got me thinking about discrimination. Um, and then the next day I was eating a steak and I was like, man, I'm like
Mm,
discriminating against the animals because they're not human, just like the humans in that movie were discriminating against the aliens for not being human. But nobody gets to choose how they're born, and there's nothing wrong with being different. So I should, I felt like I couldn't live with myself for any
yeah.
longer, and so I was able to make that change overnight. Um, and that was going from meat eater to vegetarian, and then a year and a half later was when I went from vegetarian to vegan overnight because I didn't know about the cruelty and the killing in the egg and dairy industry. But
Mhm.
once a vegan pointed that out to me, then I just stopped.
Yeah, I think that's so honorable for someone to be able to make such a big decision in their lives. Because I think what people take for granted about the commitment to veganism or any type of moral alteration in their diets is people forget the fact that you eat food more than once every day. Right? So making the decision to veganism or vegetarian or even to pescatarian, it's such a big change. And it's something that I think people take for granted and they really talk about it in a mean way. I think veganism is one of the greatest ways that you can show your level of empathy for the world and the people around you. Because the reality is you're making a choice. And at the end of the day, it literally only affects you. And that takes some dedication to do. You're saying, I want to make this change because I believe in it for myself. And to even go beyond that to say like I want to be a part of this in a social way to try and get more people to make this change, I think incorporates a level of empathy that is so profound and so valuable and it's definitely something that I very salute to people that make that decision. Um I think it's really cool that you did that. For me, when I think about it, in terms of what is most conducive to making veganism be more of a thing for everyone, I like to think about it more of a systematic and logical approach. For people like you and me, when I decided to be pescatarian, that that decision was based off of a higher sense of like wanting to produce positive change in the world. But the reality
Yeah.
is, not everyone exists in that spectrum of morality. So veganism to me then becomes a constructive problem, not a moral problem. How do we get it to be more efficient and more easier to make people make the decision to be like, yes, I support veganism? The same way I would say for non-renewable energy. We shouldn't be trying to morally shift them, but we should make it a practical solution for them. It's just a thing of supply and demand in my head. And we attach the morality afterwards. So, like, for example, the whole thing of making meat more accept or non um, making meat alternatives more accessible and cheaper will do so much more than trying to throw people like the slaughter or whatever. Because we already got the people, most of the people that are morally would want to shift into veganism. And for me, the other thing that is really, really important to consider is people that are in communities that have less access to money and resources. It's really hard to get those people, like imagine a single mom to make the decision of being like, I'm gonna buy a bunch of fruits and veggies instead of meat. But if we could make fruits and veggies and everything else per calorie be cheaper, not equivalent to meat, but be cheaper, then we could make it so that veganism is like a no-brain choice. And I think for
Well,
me, that's where
okay.
I think I would want the world to go. I think that's a more practical solution. But yes, doing the morality of it at the beginning so that people view it as like this is actually bad, I think is a really good thing to do at the beginning and to keep doing. Absolutely. But the thing that we should be doing also, and what we are doing is making non-meat alternative or making meat alternative substitutes more accessible and doing those two things together, I think is making such a big change in the world, and I'm so excited for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So I would say that I agree with you that we need systemic change. Like we need, so one thing is that there's already an alternative. Like, the cheapest foods at the grocery store are vegan, right? So rice, pasta, beans, bread, fruits, vegetables,
Mhm.
seeds. grains, tofu. Now, some vegan products that are new to the market, like vegan burgers and things like that, vegan ice cream, are sometimes a little bit more expensive depending on the brand. But that'll go down with supply and demand as more people are buying those products. So, um, but there, where there's a will, there's a way. As far as those whole foods plant-based diet, which is also extremely healthy,
Mhm.
um, but um, but it would be great if we could get the government to like stop subsidizing, like using our tax dollars to
Yeah.
bring down the cost of meat and dairy and
Mhm.
eggs, but instead to use that on vegan burgers and vegan cheese and things like this, like the good brands of vegan cheese, not the bad ones, but because some are better than others. But and even rice and pasta, like getting those prices to go down even further than they already are. Um, so that we could have protein shakes and stuff like that. We could subsidize those so that they're super
Mm.
cheap. So yeah, but I guess I feel like until we get critical mass, enough people on board, then it's hard to accomplish systemic change, especially if we don't have like animal rights activists who are in political leadership roles, which would be great, and that's one of the things I advocate for, is for people to get involved in their local communities, local politics, national politics as well, and try to push things. But I think there is still a whole lot of people that don't even realize that you can be healthy on a vegan diet. There's a lot of people that are against animal cruelty, but they haven't made the connection yet that slaughter is animal cruelty, like that it's cruel to take their lives from them, even if it's quick and painless. We're talking about decapitation here, and these animals are killed when they're just a few months old. So people are waking up to that, but a lot of people haven't seen the footage. And like it took me till I was 26 to really make the change, And so you might be making the change sooner than I did, And a lot of people just still need to be educated and motivated.
Yeah, I agree. I think one part of it that is really important to sorry, is the cultural aspect of it. Um, there are certain cultures that definitely prefer to eat meat more than vegetables, and unfortunately, in the US, we are like that. Which is why when I think about the way that we subsidize, a lot of it is because of the government does what the people want them to do, whether they are making an informed decision or not. And for a lot of people in the US, based off what we are culturally, and also because of the influx and the influence of the meat and the dairy industry of lobbying historically, um, it definitely drove us, one, to be more and more into meat eating. But I want to take it to more of like a conversation about veganism globally. I think, yes, the US is one of those places where we're probably going to have to approach the culture a little bit more. But when I think about about it globally, most people do not eat meat as much as we do in the US. It's not even close. Even when we're looking at places that are lower have a lower average income, they also tend to eat meat significantly less also. I think veganism is the solution for calories, and we're making like rice is so cheap. It's insane. We talk about like the lab grown meats and whatever as as an opportunity as meat replacements, but like calories and rice and how cheap it is and vegetables is insane. So I agree with you. It is a thing about informing people. And I completely forgot about the whole thing of how much we subsidize meat and dairy. I agree. That should not be there at all. It is such a waste of resources. It's not, it doesn't bring us any real additional money. It just costs everyone just more money to keep it in place. And if you make meat expensive enough, people are gonna choose to not eat it just out of pure principle because
Yeah.
most people they don't enjoy meat as much as they say they do. It's just a thing of like it's what they are culturally brought up to do, especially in the US.
I mean, I know I was hooked on it. Like, and I remember the first 3 weeks were a little hard, but that's what psychologists say is it takes about 21 days to kick a habit, whether it's exercise or smoking or drinking or a new diet. Um, But I remember I'd pull up to the drive-through of the McDonald's and see the picture of the big juicy burger, and I was just like, my stomach started like, and I'm salivating. I'm like, just give me the
Mhm.
French fries, and they gave me the fries. I ate them, and once I had something in my stomach, I was all right, But
Yeah.
for a little while, I had to, and kind of going to the grocery store and checking the ingredients is a little bit of a pain in the ass, But like, um, and there's not as many options available, for vegans, and there's not as many vegan restaurants and stuff like this. So it is a little bit harder to be vegan, but it's not so hard that we can't do it, if we
Mhm.
just change our priorities a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, I think people are a little too self-centered sometimes. For people who make the decision, or more particularly for people that go, "Oh, veganism is just dumb conceptually." I just think those people are generally just more selfish. It's just so weird to be like, "Oh, you're dumb for wanting to care about animals." It's like,
Mm.
what are you talking about? You literally have a dog in your house, and you treat them so much better than you would a human being, but you wanna judge someone for being vegan as being dumb? I never really understood that. I would love to maybe steer the conversation towards maybe some of the pushback that you have received, maybe particularly in your activism towards veganism, about maybe some of the weird things that people say to you about your commitment to veganism. I would love to hear that.
Sure. I mean, like, it's funny though. I used to make fun of vegans, and now look at me. So people can change, or at least some of us, for the better. But I used to be a much different person. So I'm glad I got my act together, and I still have my flaws, and I still got a little bit of an anger problem. I'm in therapy. I'm on medication. I'm working on
Mhm.
it. I try to like pace myself and not put myself in rough situations too much. But in any case. Um, so I've dealt with a lot of burnout, from being an activist. Like, in addition to having bipolar and PTSD, I've been inside slaughterhouses and
Mhm.
seen these, terrified baby animals just like cowering in the corner, facing into the corner away from us, and we're the rescuers, but they don't know. They're like little kids. They don't know the difference that we're there to rescue them, or as many of them as we could, but they're just afraid because of how they've been treated, and they know what's coming up. um and it's really, done a number on me. And so sorry, one second. So it can be a little frustrating when people don't take the issue seriously, or mock the activists, or things like that. But I've had people throw burgers at me, throw a glass of water in my face while I was protesting, standing up on a table inside of a restaurant because, like, I do disruptions. Like, I learned from a lot of great activists from other social justice movements, like women's right to vote, the disruptions that they cause, all the protests in the street, and the civil rights movement, the gay rights movement, anti-war, all kinds of movements that made a lot of progress by making a lot of noise, um, but also trying to be peaceful in the process using nonviolence. It's nonviolent civil disobedience, and so we're not, in the place saying like, you're a terrible person, you're killing animals, but instead we're saying things like, these animals didn't do anything wrong to deserve this, and they don't, they need our help. And so we urge you to get informed, like watch the videos of how they're treated and take a stand. But some people don't like it no matter how nice you are about it, because you're disrupting their dinner. But
Mhm.
this gets a lot of media coverage a lot of times, and so we're reaching a lot of people. But so one person, threw a glass of water in my face, and then I slipped on the water on the table, and could have, landed on my head, but luckily I didn't. Um, so that was one thing. And then another time I got choked and arrested, like choked by somebody. And there's a video called "Vegan Activist Gets Choked and Arrested" on my YouTube. And so yeah, like this manager of this restaurant, these women were doing a disruption, and I was with them, and so they were speaking out and standing up on a chair, and this manager was like pulling them off the chair, being really rough with them. And so I just went and stood in between them, so that he would have to like deal with me instead. But I didn't even like make eye contact with him, because I was trying to de-escalate. but he grabbed me and just starts choking me and threw me to the ground and then dragging me out of the place. And then they call the cops on me and have me arrested. But then the charges got dropped after I got out of jail and stuff like this. But oh,
Yeah, that sounds so sad, dude. Yeah, that's horrible. I agree, man. Because even with me, with my whole polyamory thing, and like even with people, still with gay people and trans people, it's like the same thing where they personally take whatever thing that you are, if you are any way, shape, or form in a more progressive viewpoint than them about what you consider to be life or humanity or what's worth protecting, that they take that personally as a way to be like, oh, you were insulting their lifestyle. Yeah, I like you're taking away their freedom by making them more aware. And in reality, I think the more and more I've recontextualized the various forms of progressiveness towards how we consider human beings and lives in general, it's always just been a continual shift of the goalposts, more like. Because if you look at the way that the first people started talking about something that we view now as just being so, for the most of the world, so being so like normal, as in you shouldn't enslave other people. At the time in which people first started saying that, the way that those people were treated, pretty much the exact same thing. And then once slavery stopped being a thing, started being more of a normalized thing, then it became civil rights. And once people were like, hey, yeah, we're not enslaved now, but shouldn't we treat everyone the same based off of their race? I was like, no, you are stupid for doing that. We're going to beat you up for having these ideas. And then slowly over time, people just became more and more aware of that, and it became more acceptable. Same with gender, race, sexuality, no matter what. And I think the evolution of the goalpost shifting is now just veganism, trans rights, um, letting people love whoever and how many people they want. Yeah, the overtime window. Thank you so much. That is what it's called. Yeah, and it's just happening again. And I think veganism is more towards the infancy of that, of where it's starting to really go from being a grassroots thing to being more of a uh, rubbing against people's actual perceptions of reality a little bit more, because now it's more and more of a choice of like you are now actually choosing to just eat animals just because you want to. And the more and more we make people go into that world by making veganism more accessible, I think it's just going to be the same thing. The less and less people are going to take more aggressive actions to protect themselves from change, because most people do make their decisions off of fear, and any change, whether positive or negative, most people interpret that as being bad. Because we're most people, they're just scared of things. They're scared of change and they're scared of things being different. The idea of taking away something that they love, even if you present a better opportunity for them, a lot of people just take that as a slap in the face. That's from my experience, because when I hear a lot of the same parallels when I've been talking to people about non-monogamy. And honestly, from this conversation, generally, I'm probably gonna switch into being vegan probably soon.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You got
Nice,
me.
nice. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I don't mean to pressure you too much or nothing, I'm just
It's no
trying to like
pressure.
empower,
You're you're right. You're right. It is something at this point. I'll do more of the looking because I want to, you know, I still bodybuild and I want to gain muscle and I do
Yeah.
combat sports and stuff. It's something that I will take a look at. If it's not something that I can completely remove my diet now, it's definitely something that I plan on limiting as much as possible. And in a world where it becomes more of an option for my lifestyle because I'm more active, definitely will swing at it more and more. And I'm going to be more in touch with the
Yeah.
research maybe a lot sooner so that I can know when it becomes that alternative for me.
Cool. Yeah, there's a bunch of vegan athletes out there. The Game Changers on Netflix. Have you seen that?
Mm.
The
No, I
Game
haven't.
Changers. Yeah, check out Game Changers on Netflix. It's got Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. He's not a vegan, but he's promoting the message of the movie, which is that you don't need meat or animal products to be healthy and be an athlete. So that's cool. He eats a little bit of meat still, um, but I think just out of pleasure, not because of health needs or anything like that. Um, So Game Changers on Netflix, and then I can send you some more resources afterwards and stuff if you're interested. There's also a website called challenge22.com, and they hook you up with a nutritionist for free that gives you
Ooh.
22 days of free nutrition advice and free recipes and, um, all kinds of information. So challenge22.com, and uh, but yeah, and I just recommend, just take it one day at a time, one meal at a time, and just don't feel overwhelmed by it, and just realize that it's like I said, it's a little bit more difficult, but it ain't that hard. And the
Yeah.
animals really need our help. It's way better for the environment. There's studies that it's actually better, like it might be better for our health as far as prevention of cancer, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and that plant-based athletes might have an advantage. But we need to see more research on that, I think, before I
Mhm.
make too bold of a claim on that. But um, I get my gains.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely something that I'll look more into. Um, yeah, I think veganism is awesome, dude. It's such a beautiful thing to be able to say that you are making active choices in your decisions and how you not only decide to live your day for today, but for tomorrow and for your future, to make a big commitment to say, like, I care enough about something to actually make a change in my life. And when I look at the various forms of activism that exist in the world, such as like the social media activism and stuff, it's it's so damaging, I think, to the message sometimes. It's so much nicer to see someone who lives a lifestyle and also does it, and also understands it in different contexts beyond just their own, and doesn't take their lifestyle to be like, "Oh, this is why everyone else is bad." It's so powerful, and I think even the resources that you gave me now, they did not exist back then, dude. And just
Yeah,
having this and knowing these things exist and being able to provide these things to more people, as you mentioned, is going to make such a big change in the world for how we treat animals and more importantly how we treat our diet. I'm super excited for that.
nice, nice. Well, do you have any other questions or comments about this, or we can let Pierce jump in?
Yeah, I'm gonna if you can send me a bunch of the research papers that you looked into, especially around like athletes too, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we'll do.
If you, yeah, that would be great. Just send me more
I
information. I would love to see that.
Okay, yeah, I'll send you information also about the environmental benefits of a plant-based diet.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, cool. Well, it's been fun talking with you. Pierce, you got any
Absolutely.
thoughts, buddy?
Yeah, hey. So I've been listening the whole time. That was a really good conversation, and I think everybody enjoyed it because there was the chat in Discord was kind of blowing up. A lot of people talking. So yeah,
Yippee.
thank you guys for coming on and talking to each other. I didn't have to interrupt at all, so that was great. I was kind of here to moderate in case shit went off the rails or you were talking past each other, but I don't think either of those things happened. So hats off to you guys. Um,
Cool.
Hats
but
off to
Yeah, if
you
you if
for
you
knowing
have any
cool people.
challenging questions. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Telly.
I was just saying hats off to Pierce for organizing this.
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
I was saying, Pierce, if you have any challenging questions, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I'd like to compare you guys a little bit. Telly, I just want to ask a clarifying question before. It sounds like you're not vegan or vegetarian. You used one word, and I think that means you just
Pescatarian.
like eat. Yeah, you just eat seafood. Is that it?
I used to, but then I went into full meat eating because I needed the calories to gain 20 pounds of muscle.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
Yeah,
fair
but
Okay,
enough.
I've
can I
just been
say
back
that?
to
Can I say one thing to that real quick? That I struggled with getting my body weight up for a long time. Like up until I'm 42, and I struggled, man. I was at like 135 pounds,
mm,
140 pounds for all my life until I started drinking this weight gainer, this vegan weight gainer powder that's like vanilla flavor. You throw it in with like some blueberries and some oat milk, and some protein powder, and then all of a sudden, like a couple months went by, and all of a sudden I was up by like 30 pounds. I'm up to like
Oh yeah.
173. I'm feeling a lot stronger. So can't
Oh
the
yeah.
wind ain't gonna push me down this time.
Oh yeah. For me, in my situation, when I was pescatarian, I was making food for myself. So it was so much easier for me to make the decision to being vegan, or not vegan, to be pescatarian. And my current lifestyle, I play the role of the trad wife for both of my partners. I stay at home and I make all the food for them. So one, at the time that I was pescatarian, and two, at the time in which I chose not to be pescatarian, I did not know how to cook well enough. I did not have my own place. I did not own my kitchen. I did not buy my own groceries. So in that world, it was so much easier for me to rely on whatever anyone else was eating. And at that time, I lived in Minnesota with people from Wisconsin. So it was a lot of steaks and deer meat, and I didn't really have as much of a choice. But now that I'm in this environment where like my partners are less picky about food, I know how to cook a lot better. I have more access to these vegan options too. Like a Whole Foods is literally like about 4 or 5 blocks away from me. I think veganism now with the lifestyle that I'm in, it's more and more seeing like as an opportunity. And actually, the more and more I'm thinking about it, it's probably cheaper for us also. So I think now, with the information I know now, and now that I am in this position in my life to be able to just be a full-time chef for my partners and have the time to cook as much food and be as creative as I want to be, veganism is definitely seeming to be more and more like the option.
Nice.
Cool. That answers the next question I was going to ask. I was going to ask you, it sounds like you are really interested in kind of want to become a vegan, but it sounds like you do. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. In this next question, I just want to ask you both, Chase and Telly here, both you guys, uh, and I want to kind of compare the reasons. Why is being a vegan something that's important or valuable to you? What's the most important part of it, or the most valuable part of it?
Well, for me, like veganism, by definition, is a moral philosophy against the, exploitation and needless killing and cruelty to animals, as opposed to a plant-based diet, which one could, engage in for their health or for the environment. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm getting the bonus of like I'm doing it for the animals, and I'm getting the bonus of a healthier lifestyle and helping the environment that I live in, which also is the home to all of us, including the animals. So that's good. But yeah, it's an anti-discriminatory stance. It's a stance saying that just because others are different from us, we should not discriminate or harm them if we can easily avoid it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's about the well-being of the animals and caring for the animals. It sounds like actually
Yeah, and
caring,
not
right?
and
Yeah.
to be clear, like it wouldn't just extend to animals. Like when like it would extend to aliens if they
Mm,
exist.
okay.
Like
Mm,
if they're sentient. Because sentience is the key. For
mm.
me, consciousness, the ability to feel pain and joy.
Okay. So Alan's included in that.
Yeah, your hypothetical Alan the alien is safe with me.
All right, Telly. What about you?
I think mine is a very similar approach. For me, the framework of it's always about maximizing progress and maximizing good and minimizing bad as much as possible. And whatever option leads to the best outcome based off of that, based off of who it affects, it's always going to be the best thing for me, either on a micro or macro lens. And for me, given the accessibility of veganism, at least in the US, and the accessibility of grains and vegetables and all of those things for the rest of the world, because rice and wheat and all of these things, I'm pretty sure they're one of the things that are traded in the most abundance around the world. It's rice and wheat and stuff like that. So when I think about all of that, for me, it's about what leads to the most amount of progress. And killing animals for food, if it's not necessary, goes against progress because killing animals doesn't lead to any productive outcomes um, by its nature. It just leads to death. And there's no world in which death is more beneficial than life. And to me, because of just that principle alone, if we could reduce the amount of death in general, so again, how to reduce the bad, it's not just death of human beings, it's death of everything. Death of our resources, death of human beings, death of life in general. That to me is always better. In terms of maximizing the benefits, lab grown meats is significantly more sustainable. Plants are significantly more sustainable and they are better for our ecosystem than the byproduct of building massive slaughterhouse, which contributes to our emissions unnecessarily. If we could get rid of something that we don't need for something that we do need, so meat for calories, if we can substitute meat for vegetables or something that's more sustainable for our future, that just seems like it's always the best outcome no matter what. And to me, that's why veganism is a no-brainer. Even when I was eating meat, it always felt like I'm going to progress towards that. And it's sounding like it might just be tomorrow after I
Nice.
finish my meatballs.
Oh,
Nice.
throw them out.
I'm sorry.
Throw them out. Throw them to the
You know
dog.
what? You know what? Yeah, I'll throw them out. I made some
Because it
good
would
coconut
you would need a
curry.
dog meat you wouldn't need a dog meatball, would you?
That's true. That's true. I made
Or
some really good sweet potato
a
coconut
human
curry.
meatball?
Oh, that's oh
Yeah,
no.
sweet potatoes good with some curry. I like that.
Mm.
My mom
No, you're
makes
right.
my mama makes some good like sweet potato with corn and black beans and salsa and guacamole. Oh yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. I think I will throw out the meatballs actually.
All
Nice.
right. Shifting gears. 'Cause I had this question planned out for a little while, and it's ironic that you're like, I'm gonna go vegan because I'm gonna ask what would take for you guys, both of you guys, Telly, the newest vegan in North America, probably. Uh, what would it take for you to go back to eating meat?
For me, like if I found out that animals didn't feel pain or joy, then like if they weren't sentient, then there'd be no reason to extend them moral consideration in my view. But you know, the scientific evidence is abundant that animals are sentient. They do care how they're treated. So, or if I were to find out that I had to eat animal products in order to survive and be healthy, I would probably do it. I would, I'd still feel like it's harmful to them. You know, it's immoral to for me to do that to them, but it would be moral for me to keep myself alive, because you know I can still help a lot of people and animals even if I'm eating them, you know, but like, and also I have a bias again, a bias to preserve my own life, you know, because I'm selfish to some degree too, you know, like we all have, or not all of us. I mean, there's some people who are willing to die for animals or for other people, and I might be willing to do that for certain animals or certain humans or for the movement as a whole, you know, like I put myself out there, like, and I live in Trump territory where I can easily get shot standing on the side of the street with a protest sign talking about how slaughter is animal cruelty and like all this stuff, you know, like people pull over and give me shit sometimes, you know, so um but um, what was the question? Oh yeah. So if I found out that I had to in order to survive and be healthy, I probably would. But I'd be sad about it.
All right, Telly, what do you
Sorry,
think?
I'm still thinking. I'm still
Okay.
thinking. Give me 1 second. Okay. I have three things. Um, Reduction in access, both short term and long term. Short term meaning, like, let's say I go to, I don't know, some country where they don't really eat that much vegetables, and I'm hungry, extremely hungry, and I cannot wait to go home in order for me to make my own food. In that environment, I would probably eat meat, but in moderation, um, just to get me enough nutrients to be able to eat my next meal, which would be when I would be able to get home in that situation. In the long term, it would be, for whatever reason, very unlikely where meat becomes more accessible than vegetables. And in the environment that I'm in, it's more important that I get my calories in that world, I can see myself eating meat more, but with the projection and the trajectory of where we're going, I don't think that's probably going to happen in the future. But in some short-term environment where, I don't know, there's some big disease that affects all of the plants but not the animals, in that world, yes, I would probably go back to eating meat, but also just enough to where I would be able to go back to being veganism the next day. And in that world, it would be what prevents me from dying today so that I can be vegan tomorrow. Um, the other thing would be if meat gives me a significant advantage in whatever lifestyle that I'm leading. So right now, I don't know enough about the research, but if for whatever research still indicates that eating meat in your diet as an athlete, particularly in my form of athletics, which is combat sports, weight training or weightlifting, and any endurance-based training too, in that world, if meat is presented as giving me, and I want to highlight the word significant advantage, then I would probably consider eating meat to the point of where I would get the advantage and no more than that. The other thing is theoretical, but probably unlikely, unless reincarnation is real. But if killing the animals didn't lead them to dying, then I would probably eat meat. But because right now we need to kill the animals to get meat, that would probably not be what I would do. If there was a world in which we could temporarily harm the animals in order to get meat, would I eat meat then? Probably still not if the other two conditions are not met. But if the other two conditions are not met, still probably not. And probably in moderation. Those are the only three things I can think of.
Wow, that is extremely thought out.
Thank you. That's why I needed to take some time.
Yeah. uh, with regards to the advantage in sports, if we lived in a society where like meat was not typically consumed, like if it was an oddity to eat meat,
Mm.
and pretty much nobody in sports was really doing it because it was, I don't know, I guess a taboo or something, would you still opt for eating the meat for that advantage?
In that world, if meat gave a slight advantage, for example, in comparison to the population, that would give me a significant advantage. So yes. If I was doing the sport professionally. If I'm an amateur, no. If me eating the meat leads to me getting paid more because I'm selfish and I believe in preserving myself and my well-being above all else, I would probably eat the meat. But
Hmm.
keyword is significant. Significant in relation to the population. Yeah, so if everyone's a vegan eater, if everyone doesn't eat meat and research shows that eating meat gives me an advantage and I'm sprinting in the Olympics, yes, I will eat meat. Because that leads me to have more money and potentially I could take more of that money to advocate or put more money into research into having plant-based alternatives that still give me the advantage. That would probably be what I would do.
Oh,
Vegan eater.
that made me think of a terrible hypothetical.
Let's
It is
hear
a
it.
really bad hypothetical, and I'm gonna ask it because
Yes.
I just want to. I want to see what you say. Um, so you're a professional athlete, and you're doing pretty good, you know, in the middle of the pack. But you might get a significant advantage, and you might be the best athlete in that sport. You know, if you were to eat human meat,
Hmm.
you'd be a superstar. Do you do it?
Let me think. I think the moral consequences of eating a human is significantly higher than eating something like fish or beef. But to even be more ridiculous in the hypothetical, in that world where it's more culturally accepted to eat human beings, would I do it? Yes. But that's probably not in any shape, that's not ever gonna be a culture that prioritizes or values the consumption of human beings is usually a culture that does not last for a very long time. So that culture probably will not exist and will never exist ever in humanity ever again because it's not progressive. And I think actually, now thinking about it, yeah,
Mm.
uh, it's hard. Because I have to put myself in the framework of it being acceptable for culturally for people to eat human beings. It's just that most people aren't doing it. In that world, people are like, yeah, we don't care if you eat human beings. In that world, where I would be, most likely yes. But it's really hard to think about that world because it goes against so much of what it goes so much against what we think, like the entire human culture of eating human beings. It goes against that so badly that it's hard to conceptualize that world for me. But logically, the answer would be yes. But it feels really bad to say that.
Hmm. I wasn't expecting that kind of answer. Um,
This is where vegan talks will get you. It
I guess
always
that's
comes down to cannibalism.
I want to recognize and celebrate your honesty, Telly. Like I think a lot of people wouldn't answer that question honestly. You know, I suppose
Mhm.
in a culture like in a culture where something's totally normalized, you see it every day. You grew up that way. You're just gonna accept it, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, if you this is what I would say just to offer it a perspective on this even more. If you look in cultures and environments where there's a lot of death, isn't it significantly more accepted for people to go through death? Like in those environments, the damage of you losing a loved one if you are raised in an environment where people just die randomly every day, in those environments, the cost, the social cost of a life does go down, and people do treat human lives worse in those environments. So just by that understanding alone, of course, if I was in that environment, I would probably do the same because I am a human being just like everyone else. The same way I don't look down on someone who is in a culture where they are raised and they're in an environment where violence is normalized. I don't view them as doing something morally wrong, or I view it on a spectrum in comparison to someone who kills in like Sweden versus someone who kills in like Afghanistan, for example. Those are two completely different places, two completely different cultures, and two completely different places that value human beings. And for me, because of that, um, it's hard for me to be like, no, I wouldn't be a human being, you know? How can I say that I would be any different than anyone else? Because literally, if you put someone in an environment, everyone is going to adapt. So why wouldn't I? I think it's stupid to say that I wouldn't act like anyone else.
Yeah, I think
Well,
that's honest. Oh, go ahead, Chase.
I don't know though, because you just went vegan. You just went all counterculture on us. So I mean,
He's got a
maybe you would
point.
do the same in that society, you know? You'd be
You
like,
know what?
I can't eat humans no more.
Maybe, maybe. But it would definitely be hard for me to make that decision, for
Oh
sure.
well, yeah, because humans are so tasty.
Yeah,
I know I would be delicious.
you'd have to be. You gained like you told me at 135, maybe not. At 170, that's a meal.
Mm, juicy.
All right, how about
Oh
to
boy.
close this out? Would you guys be comfortable taking questions from the audience, like we bring people up on stage?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go
Okay.
for it.
Yeah, if anybody does want to come up and ask any questions, you can raise your hand. I'll bring you up.
or if they want to text it in the chat.
Yeah, I don't have my OBS set up with the chat closed. I can look at my phone. I don't think it's loading properly on my phone. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Well, oh, somebody asked me a question. I don't think it's loading right on my phone. That's annoying. You know what? I'll reset up OBS real quick.
Someone did ask a question in the Discord chat. Why is death considered bad when it allows more creatures to exist? Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yay! Um, I think there's a natural, I think there is something that we do, a lot of people do, that's called an appeal to nature. And I think that's one of the greatest fallacies that ever existed in this whole world. It's like poison ivy is natural, but you wouldn't say eating poison ivy is good for you. So why is the appeal to nature exactly something that implies that it's necessarily beneficial? I disagree. When I think about death, I don't want to think about it in a vacuum as of whether you eat meat or you don't eat. It's are there substitutes for meat that get you around the same results? And in the current environment that we live in the US, for most people, for almost probably for all people, the answer is yes. If we destroy these systems that have established that we should be and we have to eat meat, um, what would be the moral imperative to continue slaughtering and killing animals? Wouldn't the answer just be like, there's no reason? So for me, it's is there a substitute to get what you want without causing harm or reducing the amount of harm that you can cause? And if you can substitute meat for plants or meat for beef and chicken for fish, for example, or even going from fish to plants, or even from going plants to all artificially made food that provide literally the same value and it all tastes the same, what would be the reason why you would continue to eat meat or whatever is causing more harm or more death? Because death does not really provide anything of value. It creates what fossil fuels, but even then, there's better energy resources out there than fossil fuels anyway. So things dying and putting them in the ground is still not the most beneficial use of our resources. That's the way that I would think about it. Uh, it's not so much as an appeal to nature. I'm not saying death is good because it's natural. I'm saying death allows for new life. That's not necessarily true. In a world where we can be all immortal, what would be the reason for us to continue having death? Even in that world, I don't see death being useful because death is like it's the end of something. Wouldn't it be better that we live 40 years than 30? Wouldn't it be better that we live 20 years than 10 and so on and so forth? So I don't view death as being a I don't even view death as being a necessity. I think we should try and cure death and cure disease because isn't that what the progression of humanity has been anyway? People live significantly longer now than they did at any point in time in history. And shouldn't we be trying to progress towards living forever? Isn't that better for everyone? And to me, death is always a bad thing. No matter how old you are, dying is always a bad thing because we lose something. All of those resources, all of that knowledge that you had in your brain, all of the experience of that animal or that plant just goes away. And we no longer have access to that. That is not good for anyone in my head.
Just thought
Howdy.
I'd try and explain what I'm saying a bit easier. Um, yeah, I guess I completely agree with you about the living forever thing, but currently we can't live forever. So, like, I guess what I'm just trying to question is whether because earlier on in the conversation you said that like for you that you value the life and so you wouldn't want to cause more death. And I'm just wondering why that is what you're trying to address as opposed to suffering. Like for you, why is stopping death more is that more important than stopping suffering? Like, how do you weigh up those two? Like, are you trying to reduce suffering, or are you trying to stop death, or do you like have a value that you value one over the other?
Um, I'm having a So suffering exists on a spectrum to me. Like, for example, I have a cold right now and I'm suffering. Would I want to relieve my cold? Yes, absolutely. If I had cancer, that's significantly more suffering than the common cold. Would I want to stop cancer? Yes. And to me, the ultimate form of suffering is death. Death of ideas, death of progress, death of lives, death of resources. And I think that's the ultimate version of suffering. So to me, the more our resources or culture or whatever that exists as a resource to us, whether it's calories or lives, the more we take it away from and considering suffering on a spectrum, the further we get away from the consequences of our actions are the byproduct of us existing, leading to some kind of death, and maybe more closer to a lighter or yeah, a lighter version on the spectrum of suffering, the better that is for everyone. So yes, death to me, it is about suffering, but for me, I'm explaining death as the ultimate version of suffering.
Hmm.
I hope that makes sense.
It's not my personal perspective, but it was good clarification on your perspective, so thanks.
Of course. Thank you for asking.
And then there
Someone
was
else?
a question. I'm answering this question that was in the chat from Miss Beauregard, saying if plants turned out to be sentient, where would I be then? What would I do? So if plants were sentient, despite not having a brain or nervous system or pain receptors, um, then I would try to be as nice as possible to plants. But there's some plants that we have to eat in order to survive and be healthy, but we don't have to eat animal products to survive and be healthy. And when we eat animal products, we're killing more plants than if we just ate the plants directly. So, like, according to Yale University, it takes 25 calories of plants to make 1 calorie of beef because the cow has to be fed plants for 18 months to get up to slaughter weight to produce a small amount of meat. So, as a utilitarian or leaning towards utilitarianism, I'm trying to cause the least amount of suffering and death for sentient beings. But if plants were sentient, this would be going vegan would still be the best thing to do.
Ooh, can I add something too? Um, I think for me, that's why, at least for me personally, why I like to take away the conversation from being about sentience and just being death. Because whether something experiences pain or not, death is still the outcome. So if we could avoid having plants die, that's still a better option than even if they were sentient or not. Because plants continue to produce and be progressive for ecosystems and environments, and they continue to produce more things for the world. And just because of my pro-progression viewpoint, I think for me it takes away from the conversation of like minimizing pain and just maximizing progress. Because if we could have a plant live for a year versus 6 months, wouldn't that be better? If we could only have to kill fish instead of killing beef or cows and fish or cows and chicken, wouldn't that be so much better? And to me, that's why I like treating the framework about death or minimizing suffering and maximizing progress more than like a whole thing about what is sentient, what can we eat, what ends up being hurt by us eating it or what doesn't. Because the morality, I think there's a layer deeper under there that we can just go that kind of bypasses all of those questions. Because the reality is, if everyone can get the same amount of calories, eating something that doesn't harm the world or doesn't cause any death, who wouldn't choose that as an option as long as they just get to if they get to enjoy the same amount of calories, it still tastes just as good. Who in their right mind would still choose to eat meat? That doesn't make sense to me. That's how I think I would frame it. And that's where I would come on. That's how I would that's how I would challenge the question personally.
Cool, cool.
No,
Anybody else got?
Miss. Oh, go ahead, Chase.
No, I was asking if anybody else had thoughts. Go ahead, Pierce.
There was one more question. It's a lengthy question. I just have to find it real quick. Um, right here. Oh no, was that it? No, that wasn't it. I can't find it now. Darn it.
How do you think about the nuances of promoting veganism or vegetarianism as a moral imperative? This one?
That one, yeah. Keep reading
Okay.
it.
All right, let me start over. How do you think about the nuances of promoting veganism or vegetarianism as a moral imperative, especially when considering the cultural and environmental context of different regions? For instance, in areas where plant agriculture is impractical, like arid, cold, or mountainous regions, local practices like herding goats, raising reindeer can be far more sustainable than importing plant-based foods or creating artificial farming systems. How do you approach these complexities when advocating for ethical or sustainable food systems?
Yeah, so there's a study. I'll post in the chat. Give me 1 second here. Do, do, do. Okay, here we go. So this will just be like something for people to check out later on because it's a big old thing. But the idea is that transportation is not the main factor when it comes to the food supply. It's what food choices we're making. Um, Here's another one. Uh, yeah, also like we don't need to use every part of the earth um, to grow any kind of food. Like if a certain area, rigid cliffs or whatever can't grow plants, well, we don't need to use that rigid cliff for anything. We don't have to put animals on it either necessarily, right? Now there might be some parts of the world where like, you know, small tribes or something where they don't have plant agriculture. They have no agricultural system to speak of really. They just like, herd goats or whatever. And I'm aiming at developed nations that can easily make this change, and then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it and try and help them with bringing them either importing plant products to them so that they can have a healthy diet, a healthy sustainable diet, or we help them grow like plants where they live via indoor vertical farming or whatever. That may not be applicable to everywhere on Earth anytime soon, but that would be the goal. And in the meantime, the rest of us can just start helping societies where we live, the society that we're in, progress and change.
Oh, I have something maybe I want to add to that too. I think it's important to talk about food security as a concept, alongside humans' progression in history. Um, and it very much so coincides with who human beings thinks are other human beings. In an environment where we were hunter-gatherers, for example, food security ended at your tribe, right? So if some other person had food, you would just take it from them because you didn't consider them to be other human beings. The concept of them being someone that you could trade with was not existent in that environment, right? And when we evolved to now have small communities of farming, that's when like things like Vikings and all of these horrible people that came over and just stole all your stuff existed. And the more and more we progress towards globalism and viewing and I view globalism as an extension of considering people outside of your country, outside of your direct vicinity, as another person too. Someone that you have to respect their own autonomy and freedom to make choices for themselves. And that's why I think globalism is so powerful. If you look at the conflict going on, a lot of the conflicts going on, like the prospect of other countries that are not participating in that conflict to send food to that country or that population is crazy. That is a very new concept that did not exist for the majority of human history. And when I think about these places where that do not have access to food, the solution to this problem to me is just making trade more global, making it so
Yeah.
that people recognize people outside of themselves more and more like people. Because even now we still struggle with that, but we struggle with it a lot less than what we did 10, 20, 30, 40, 100, 200 years ago. Because 100, 200 years ago, we thought certain people, based off the color of their skin, deserve to be slaves. So the more and more we progress towards globalism and world trade, the more and more these people are going to have access to like McDonald's. Dude, there's McDonald's almost in every country, dude. That's crazy. That is insane conceptually. I don't think people have really taken the time to really appreciate that because 30, 40, 50 years ago, certain places, I was in Haiti, dude, we didn't have McDonald's. That's crazy. And I think food security is going to become a less and less of a problem the more and more we progress in the future. And the more and more we make food accessible, the more and more different food options are going to be available. And the more food options that are available, I think the more I'm going to choose to be vegan.
Yeah, and one other option that people can do is a Google search for vegan restaurants near me, and or vegan options near me, and it'll show you vegan restaurants or vegan options at regular restaurants. And again, there's that challenge22.com. And maybe just like folks can plan before they go to the grocery store, make a veganized grocery list, and sit down and take the extra time that it takes to read the labels, and make a plan and make it happen. And it's not too hard. It's just, instead of grabbing
Yeah.
this thing at the store, you grab that thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. The more the more you remove the steps for people to make a decision, the more likely they're going to make a decision, especially when it's beneficial to them. I think we're seeing that with Ozempic, right? The easier you make it for people to be able to manage their weight, like by just giving them a pill. If you could give someone a pill to make them just be happy for their entire life, who would not take that? And I view food access as being one of those things. If you give people so many options and all the options lead to nearly the same outcome, and it's all a matter of choice, it's so much easier for you to go like, dude, this thing, just you're killing an animal, right? And that person be like, oh, you're right, this other option tastes just the same and it's just the same amount of calories. Of course I would choose this. And I think our solution for a lot of problems and a lot of moral imperatives in the world is to make it easier for people to choose the right option as opposed to forcing them to make the decision.
Yep, education can go a long way, and just being a good lead by example, kind of thing. And I try to be patient and understanding. It's hard sometimes, but I'd like to thank you, Telly. I got to get running pretty soon here. I think. Do we have any other questions in the chat?
Uh, Let me check YouTube. I don't think there's anything.
I didn't see any that
Um,
you missed.
no, I don't think so either.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Okay, cool.
So, um,
Yeah.
after we end the stage here, there is a after show chat. I already got it started. So everybody, when I close it out, you guys can go there. But yeah, thank you, Chase. Thank you, Telly. This was great. I really, really like this. Hey, fireworks. That's cool. I don't know how you did that, but I like it.
Double thumbs up, I think.
All right, I got.
And yeah,
Yay!
and thank you, Telly, for being so open minded and so honest and warm hearted, I'd say. And Pierce, thank you
Absolutely.
as always for hosting and all your technological wisdom.
All
Hmm.
right.
Your AI wisdom is insane. You're killing it, dude. You're killing it. Yeah, I do want to say I love these conversations. I love talking to people. I love building bridges, and I love people that are really intentional about causing any form of change. So if you, a person in the audience, or if you know someone in your life that would value any kind of conversation, please follow me on Instagram. I think it's in the description at the YouTube for the YouTube stream.
It is. Yep.
Yeah, awesome. It doesn't have to be public. It could just be a conversation through text or through Discord. I love talking to people and I love hearing about their perspective and causing changes on the small level because I think that's where it counts the most. So please find me, follow me, message me. I will most likely respond.
Yeah, and you can follow me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.
Yippee.
All right. Without further ado, I'm going to play that banger of an outro. I love that.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
If you've watched this far, you know what to do. Don't miss what's next. The choice is on you. Stay in the loop, keep your feet in line. Hit that bell, catch me live next time. It's simple, it's quick, but it means a lot. Stay connected, see the moves I've got. No promises, no fluff, just what's real. Subscribe and the update seal the deal. Subscribe, hit the bell and I'll see you. The stream's done now, but the content won't stop. So stay in the loop till I'm back at the top.